Some cases don't just go cold. They get weirder the longer you look at them. Witnesses who vanish, evidence that contradicts itself, investigators who walked away with more questions than answers. Today we're covering mysteries that have never been solved, and in some cases it may never be. We'll start with the strange and work our way to the truly bizarre. So the goal, guys, is 2.5 million subscribers by the end of 2026. It is crazy, but it would mean the world if you subscribe. I will do my very best to put out the best possible videos I can for you. I'm Visual Venture and you are amazing. The lady with crystal blood. Doctors are trained to recognize almost every major illness, but in February 1994, a woman arrived at a hospital with symptoms that didn't match anything in medical textbooks. Her blood contained strange white crystals. The air around her smelled like garlic, and when doctors got close to her, they began collapsing. She was nicknamed the Toxic Lady, and for years, people have tried to understand how she became a walking public health hazard. The Toxic Lady's real name was Gloria Ramirez. She had cancer and she was taking medication for it. In February 1994, she was rushed into a California emergency room. Her condition was critical. Doctors tried to stabilize her condition, but then they noticed something unusual about Gloria's skin. It had an oily, shimmering glow.
The people in the emergency room take note of this and mention that it looks too thick to be sweat. However, they just assume that she's coated in some kind of lotion or oil.
It was strange, but not alarming. Then they drew blood. Almost instantly, a strong ammonia-like smell filled the room. Some staff said it smelled like garlic. The blood itself looked wrong. Floating inside the samples were tiny white crystals, and things went from bad to worse. The nurse handling the blood sample suddenly felt dizzy. Moments later, she fainted. Another nurse picked up the sample. She also became lightheaded.
A medical student who had also handled the blood sample then became nauseous, left the room, and fainted a few minutes later.
Now, 2 medical workers were unconscious, then a third nurse in the room passed out. When they regained consciousness, they had alarming symptoms,
including the sensation that their skin was burning, muscular twitches, and being unable to move their limbs.
The doctors and nurses who didn't pass out began to feel sick. In total, 23 of the 37 medical staff developed symptoms. 5 had to be hospitalized. What started as strange was now dangerous. Doctors treating Gloria had to wear hazmat suits for protection, and they didn't know what they were protecting themselves from.
What the happened to Gloria Ramirez that caused her to secrete this mystery toxic substance that affected 24 people?
35 minutes after arriving at the hospital, Gloria Ramirez passed away. The emergency room was immediately evacuated. Gloria's body was treated as a possible chemical threat. One medical officer called her a public health hazard, but the mystery didn't end with her demise. They needed to perform an autopsy, but they used full hazmat gear to be safe. Doctors worked for hours, yet they found nothing that could have caused Gloria's passing or the emergency room symptoms. The case quickly gained public attention. As usual, the internet had theories.
One of the most widely accepted theories about the event centers around Ramirez's cancer medication.
Some experts believe her cancer treatment caused a strange reaction in her body,
and how they may have led to chain reactions, resulting in poisonous gas.
However, standard medication should not create toxic gas. That gave rise to another theory. Maybe Gloria was putting something else into her body.
Amateur internet detectives theorize Ramirez may have been self-medicating or seeing a shady doctor for quack treatments involving dangerous chemicals.
Others believe no toxic gas was present at all. People were just imagining things.
Their theory was that whatever it was in the blood that had that smell triggered a panic attack that just sort of traveled around the room.
In that version, the fainting was mass hysteria. More than 30 years later, there is still no reliable scientific explanation. Gloria's body was eventually returned to her family. A few weeks later, she was laid to rest, but the question has never been buried. What happened inside the emergency room in February 1994? This next case is about a person who destroyed people's lives without ever showing their face. The secret letters. Circleville was a small, quiet town in Ohio. But one day, people started getting strange letters in the mail. No one knew who sent them, but the writer claimed to know everyone's deepest, darkest secrets. And because of the information in those letters, tensions rose and it ended in tragedy. The anonymous letters started arriving in 1976. They followed the same pattern. Residents opened their mailboxes and found envelopes with no return address. The words inside were written in messy block letters, almost like a child's handwriting. Each letter was filled with accusations.
Received bizarre, threatening letters from someone who somehow knew every salacious detail of their personal lives.
Some letters accused city officials of embezzling money. Others claimed people were violent with their spouses. One letter even accused someone of murder. The writer did not only send letters to the person being accused, they mailed copies to spouses, employers, and even local newspapers. No one knew how much of it was true, but the accusations were enough to destroy reputations.
The letters cost people their jobs, their marriages, their freedom, and sometimes their lives.
Neighbors suspected each other of spying. Circleville became a tense and paranoid town. Over time, one thing became clear. The writer seemed obsessed with one person. That person received more attention than anyone else. Her name was Mary Gillespie, a local school bus driver. Mary lived with her husband, Ron, and their children. Most people saw her as quiet and devoted to her family. In March 1977, she received a letter accusing her of an affair. The man she was supposedly cheating with was Gordon Massey. He was the school superintendent and technically her boss. The letter warned Mary that if she didn't stop the affair, she'd face dire consequences.
Mrs. Gillespie, stay away from Massey. Don't lie when questioned about meeting him. I know where you live. I've been observing your house.
Both Mary and Gordon were married. The accusation alone could destroy two families. Mary tried to ignore the letter, but the writer didn't give up. Weeks later, Mary's husband Ron began receiving letters too. They described the alleged affair and urged him to take violent action.
Mr. Gillespie, your wife is seeing Gordon Massey. You should catch them together and them both. He doesn't deserve to live.
Ron confronted Mary. She denied the affair and he chose to believe her. But the letters kept coming and the tone became more threatening.
Well, he got letters saying that if he didn't do something about this affair, his life would be in danger.
We know what kind of car you drive. We know where your kids go to school.
The writer wanted Ron to end the life of the man his wife was allegedly seeing. For months, Ron refused to act. Then came August 19, 1977. That evening, Ron was home with his daughter. He received a phone call. No one knows exactly what was said. After hanging up, Ron told his daughter he knew who was behind the letters. He said he was going to confront the letter writer.
Enraged, he picks up gets in his truck, and drives off.
No one knows where Ron went, but an hour later, the town received bad news. Ron was found lifeless inside his pickup truck. There were no witnesses, but it looked like Ron's truck slid off the road and rammed into a tree. Tests showed his blood alcohol level was far beyond the legal limit. Authorities ruled the crash an accident, but one detail raised doubts. It had to do with Ron's firearm.
But they found that he had fired one shot out of his. They don't know who he was shooting at or what he was shooting at, but he fired a shot before he crashed.
Ron used his firearm that night, but no one knows at whom or at what. Did Ron confront the letter writer? That question was never answered. But even after Ron's passing, the letters continued. The writer continued accusing Mary of having an affair. One letter was sent to the local newspaper. The situation turned into a public scandal. Then Mary made a confession. She admitted she was in a relationship with Gordon Massey, the man she was accused of cheating with. But Mary said the relationship started after her husband's demise. Maybe she figured the letters would stop after her confession. Instead, the messages became more extreme. The writer accused her of destroying families. One letter even mentioned Mary's daughter.
How's your little girl? Will she grow up to be like you?
Man,
absolutely unhinged thing to say.
What a crazy letter.
The writer wrote, "It's your daughter's turn to pay for what you've done." Then in February 1983, the situation turned deadly. One day, Mary was driving her usual bus route. She noticed a handmade sign on a fence. The sign contained a vulgar message about her daughter. Believing it was from the letter writer, she stopped the bus. She got out and tried to remove the sign. Behind it was a small box. She opened it. Inside was a firearm. The weapon was rigged to fire when the sign was pulled away, but it malfunctioned. If it worked, Mary could have lost her life. She took the box and the weapon to the police. Investigators examined the firearm. They were able to restore the partially filed off serial number. And the weapon was traced back to a man named Paul Freshour. He was Mary's brother-in-law. Paul denied any involvement. Still, he was charged with attempted murder because the weapon belonged to him. He was found guilty and sentenced to 7 to 25 years in prison. Many people believed the case was solved. They thought Paul was the secret letter writer, but even while he was behind bars, the letters kept coming. The writer was still out there. The letters continued until 1994. Then they suddenly stopped. Nearly 18 years passed since the first letter. To this day, the writer's identity remains unknown, and many questions remain unanswered. This next mystery is about a man who vanished without a trace. The man with no memory. A man was missing for 30 years, then he came back. He was wearing the same outfit he had on when he vanished. He looked confused and distant. When his family asked where he was for 30 years, his answer made no sense at all. In 1991, Vasile Gorgos was a 63-year-old man in Romania. He lived on a farm with his family and raised cattle. Every now and then, he would travel for business. That year, he prepared one more trip to another city. He got out of bed, fed his cattle, and went to the train station. He told his family he would return in a day or two. However, Vasile never came back. Given his age, his family grew worried. They reported him missing, but the police weren't able to find any leads. Weeks turned into months, months turned into years, and years turned into decades. Vasile was 63 when he vanished. As time passed, his family accepted that he was no more. They began holding a yearly memorial service in his honor. 30 years went by with no answers. Then he returned in the most unexpected way possible. One day in August 2021, a mysterious car pulled up in front of Vasile's old home. No one recognized the vehicle. The back door opened. Someone pushed out an old man. Before anyone could record the license plates, the car sped away. The man left standing there was Vasile Gorgos. He was now 93 years old. When his family saw him, they rushed outside. After 30 years, they were reunited. But everyone had the same question. Where was he for the last 30 years? When asked where he had been, Vasile insisted that he was home the entire time. It seemed he had no memory of the last 30 years. Even stranger, he was wearing the same clothes from the day he disappeared. When they checked his pockets, he still had his train ticket from 1991. Both his clothes and his train ticket were in fairly good condition. His family thought he had a medical condition that affected his mind, but doctors found no major health problems.
He was described as being in very good health, aside from some neurological issues, which were said to be nothing out of the ordinary for his age.
Investigators tried to trigger his memory. They asked about his childhood and adult life, and Vasile remembered a lot.
His memories from before his disappearance were reportedly mostly very clear.
He remembered events from decades earlier, but his memory stopped in 1991. It was as if the last 30 years were erased. Police reopened the case. Their only lead was the mysterious car that dropped them off, but it led nowhere.
And the vehicle sped off before anyone could ask questions or see the driver.
Without new evidence, the investigation stalled again. The media picked up the story, and it went viral online. Internet users formed their own theories. Some believed Vasile was used in a secret government experiment. Afterward, they wiped his memory. Another theory claimed he was imprisoned in another country. Others had a more scandalous explanation.
Some speculated that he abandoned his old life to start anew, possibly with a lover, and that he returned home to make amends before his health deteriorated.
But none of the theories explained one thing: why Vasile was wearing the same outfit and why his train ticket was still in his pocket. After his return, Vasile settled back in with his family. To this day, no one knows where Vasile Gorgos was for 30 years. The man in our next chapter went on a holiday with his friends and was never the same again. The unexplained case of Lars Mattank. In 2014, a German man went on vacation with his friends. 8 days later, he was running through an airport in terror. As he ran, he yelled, "I don't want to die here." But here's the strangest part: no one was chasing him. So what was he running from? That man was 28-year-old Lars Mattank. In June 2014, Lars traveled to Golden Sands Resort in Bulgaria. It was supposed to be a simple holiday with friends. For the first few days, Lars was reportedly in a good mood. Then on the 6th night, things went downhill. Lars separated from the group while they were out. Hours later, he returned with a strange story. He reportedly told his friends that he argued with men at a local bar. After leaving, he was ambushed.
He said that this group of men, who he thought were either Russian or locals, so Bulgarians, had attacked him.
Lars believed the attackers were hired by the group in the bar whom he disagreed with. His friends didn't panic. Bar fights happened. They assumed it was just a bad night. The next day, Lars told his friends he visited a local doctor. He wanted to check for injuries. The doctor reportedly found a ruptured eardrum. It was likely caused by the fight. Lars was given an antibiotic to treat it, but that ear injury changed the direction of this story. Lars and his friends were scheduled to fly home to Germany the next day, but the doctor advised Lars not to fly. He warned that a change in cabin air pressure could worsen the ear injury, so Lars stayed behind to recover. All his friends flew home. That was the last time they ever saw Lars, because after they left, his behavior changed completely. Lars checked into another hotel. That evening, he called his mother in Germany. He told her he did not feel safe. He repeated the story about the fight. Then he asked her to cancel his credit cards because he felt someone wanted to rob him. His mother tried to calm him down. After the call, she booked him a new flight for the next day. She hoped that would make him feel feel better. The opposite happened.
Later that night and into the early hours of the next morning, surveillance cameras captured Matang pacing the hotel foyer, peering out the windows and seemingly hiding inside an elevator.
Lars looked jittery. A few hours later, he called his mother again. This time, he claimed he was being followed. Then he hung up. Around 6 in the morning, he called once more. He said he was at the airport for his flight. He told her he was glad to be there. His mother felt relieved. At the airport, Lars went to see a doctor for a final check before boarding. That's when the situation spiraled out of control. The doctor cleared him to fly, but something about Lars felt off.
The physician reported that Matang was acting strangely, really nervous and erratic.
Then a man entered the room. Reports are unclear about who that man was, but the moment he saw the man, he panicked. He ran out of the doctor's office, leaving his phone, wallet, and passport behind. CCTV cameras captured Lars sprinting through the airport. Witnesses heard him yell, "I don't want to die here. I have to get out of here." He ran outside, climbed over a fence, and disappeared into a nearby forest. Police searched nearby forests and surrounding streets. They found nothing. Lars was gone. After Lars' disappearance, his family was desperate. His mother filed a missing person report and hired a private investigator. Lars' friends were questioned, but different friends offered different accounts, which in turn featured different details. Still, she couldn't find her son. Later, the CCTV footage of Lars running through the airport leaked. Millions watched it. Then the theories began. Some believed he suffered a head injury during the alleged bar fight.
Theory number 4, Matang had a concussion as a result of that fight. This caused psychosis. This is a possibility.
Others thought Lars wanted to run away and start a new life, so he staged everything.
For that, he planned his own disappearance and simply does not want to be found.
His family strongly rejected that idea. They said Lars loved his life in Germany. There were darker theories too.
It's also been suggested that Matang or his friends were working as drug mules, either voluntarily or forcibly.
But there was no evidence that they were involved in criminal activity. The most popular theory came from Lars's mother. She believed that he experienced a rare side effect from the antibiotic that he was prescribed for his ruptured eardrum. She thought the medication triggered a psychotic episode. She also believed the meds triggered amnesia, meaning Lars could still be alive in Bulgaria. He simply may not remember who he was. The footage of him running still haunts the internet, and the biggest question still lingers. Who was he running from in that airport? Up next is one of the most baffling events in modern history, and nobody has been able to explain it. The airplane that vanished. In 2014, a Boeing 777 disappeared while flying through the air. It was a massive commercial aircraft. Hundreds of people were on board. How does something that large simply vanish? Some called it the deadliest case of aircraft disappearance. But the real mystery wasn't the missing plane. It was what happened on board before it disappeared. The aircraft was Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. On March 8th, 2014, it took off with 227 passengers and 12 crew members. It was headed to Beijing, China. The weather was calm. Radar systems were tracking the plane. The pilots were in contact with Malaysian Air Traffic Control.
Malaysian 370, climb flight level 350.
Level 350, Malaysian 370.
38 minutes after takeoff, the chaos began. The plane was preparing to enter Vietnamese airspace.
Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night.
Good night, Malaysian 370.
Those were the final words from the pilots. Moments later, the plane disappeared from tracking screens. Here's what that means. Commercial planes normally send out a signal to show their location. That signal allows controllers on the ground to monitor and guide the aircraft. On Flight 370, that signal stopped. That likely meant someone on board turned off the tracking system. Airline staff tried calling the plane using satellite phones. No one answered. Authorities grew concerned. They alerted the Malaysian government. Soon after, the military activated its radar systems to search for the plane.
Unlike the radar system employed by air traffic control, long-range military radar does not rely on transponders but use reflectance to track the position of aerial targets.
In simple terms, military radar can detect a plane even if it stops sending signals. And it picked up the aircraft 54 minutes after it vanished, but it was now hundreds of miles off course. Instead of continuing toward Beijing, it was flying in a completely different direction. That detail became central to the mystery. Planes do not change direction without reason. Some believe the plane was hijacked, but no hijacker contacted authorities demanding ransom. Minutes after appearing on military radar, the plane vanished again. At that point, Malaysia Airlines released a press statement. Flight 370 was officially declared missing. Malaysian authorities launched a large-scale search. They asked other countries for help. About an hour later, satellite data located the plane. And now it was flying over the Indian Ocean. That made the situation far worse. Experts calculated that the plane was almost out of fuel. But the Indian Ocean is the third largest ocean in the world. There was nowhere nearby to refuel. If it kept flying that way, it would likely crash into the ocean. Soon after, the satellites lost contact. The plane was never seen again. Many reached the same conclusion.
The seventh arc was indeed the end of the flight, and that it was where the plane had exhausted its fuel.
The plane probably fell into the sea. Ships and helicopters were deployed to scan the ocean. Teams searched for debris and bodies, but they found nothing. As the search continued, investigators tried to figure out what happened inside the aircraft. Experts believe the plane was deliberately rerouted by someone on board. Police did a background check of everyone on the flight, but they found no red flags among the 227 passengers or the 12 crew. Investigators also searched the home of one of the pilots. On his computer, they found flight simulator software which allowed someone to practice flying routes like virtual reality.
They found 8 coordinate points.
Those coordinates on the flight simulator were similar to the direction the real plane went.
He had marked 2 points in the southern Indian Ocean with fuel at 0, and on March 8th, he ended up in the southern Indian Ocean with fuel at 0.
To some, this proved the pilot planned the hijacking. But that was hard to believe because detectives said the pilot had no history of odd behavior. A year passed without clear answers. Then aircraft wreckage washed up on beaches along East Africa. Some pieces were positively identified as coming from Flight 370. The main wreckage, however, was never found. Malaysia did not give up. They said they were committed to providing closure to the families affected by this tragedy. Over the years, search missions have started and stopped. In December 2025, a new search was announced. Meanwhile, the public came up with wild theories.
CNN issued a survey that indicated that at one point about 9% of Americans actually believed that aliens could have potentially hijacked the plane.
Until the main wreckage is found, we may never know what truly happened inside that cockpit. Up next is a mystery where the crime is clear, the suspect is known, but the ending doesn't make sense. The perfect hijacking. Many crimes are often dark or violent, but in November 1971, a man committed a crime that was simply impressive. The story began in an Oregon airport in 1971. A mysterious man paid cash for a one-way flight to Seattle. The name on his passport was Dan Cooper.
He's a Caucasian male. He's got on a dark suit, black tie, carrying a briefcase.
In 1971, security checks were minimal, so he boarded the plane without any issues. The trouble began shortly after takeoff. Cooper handed a note to a flight attendant. It read, "I have a bomb in my briefcase, and I want you to sit by me." The attendant stayed calm and followed his instructions. When she sat beside him, he opened the briefcase to prove he wasn't bluffing.
Schaffner describes the contents of the briefcase as something that looks like 8 sticks of dynamite, a battery, and a bunch of wires.
He then gave his demands. He wanted 4 parachutes and $200,000 in $20 bills. That's about $1.7 million in today's money. Cooper wanted the police to deliver the ransom when the plane landed in Seattle. The attendant notified the captain. The captain alerted the ground crew. The FBI was contacted. After discussions, the authorities agreed to cooperate. They gathered the ransom money from a local bank and collected 4 parachutes from a flight school. And it was all done quietly. The other passengers on the flight had no idea they were in danger.
Finally, the plane landed at Seattle-Tacoma Airport at 5:45 p.m. Surrounded by snipers, Cooper had the crew close the window shades.
The ransom and parachutes were handed over. The passengers were released, but Cooper instructed the crew to stay on board. They were his hostages. Then Cooper gave new instructions. He wanted them to fly him to Mexico City. The plane took off again. The FBI prepared to arrest him in Mexico City, but Cooper never planned to go that far. Somewhere over the dark forests of the Pacific Northwest, he made his move. He strapped the money around his waist.
He lowered the back stairs and jumped out of a speeding 727, thousands of feet over the Pacific Northwest.
The crew watched as he vanished into the darkness below. The FBI mapped possible landing zones. They searched forests, rivers, and fields, but they found no trace of Cooper, his parachute, or the money. Agents searched the hijacked plane and found a few clues.
They also find Cooper's black clip-on tie and tie clip, some cigarette butts, and 2 of the 4 parachutes.
The clues weren't useful.
In 1971, we don't have fingerprint databases like we do today.
We also don't have DNA at this time.
FBI agents interviewed the crew. Using their descriptions, they created a sketch of the hijacker. In the end, they investigated over 800 suspects, but none of them was the hijacker. Agents were frustrated and the case went cold. Then an 8-year-old child brought the mystery back to life. In 1980, a boy was playing along the Columbia River in Vancouver, Washington. Suddenly, he felt something fluffed up in the sand. The boy dug it and found bundles of cash. His parents took the money to the police. When officers checked the serial numbers, they matched the money Cooper jumped with. That meant Cooper lost some or all of the cash after landing. The discovery made the case even more popular. People began hoping they might find some of Cooper's money too. As the years passed, new theories emerged.
Perhaps Cooper didn't survive his jump from the plane.
And they had reasons.
After all, the parachute he used couldn't be steered, his clothing and footwear were unsuitable for a rough landing, and he had jumped into a wooded area at night.
Others had more extreme ideas. They believed the government arrested Cooper and hid the truth, but nothing could be confirmed. As the story spread, one reporter made a simple mistake. They misread Dan Cooper as D.B. Cooper. The wrong name stuck. The world became obsessed with D.B. Cooper, the hijacker who jumped out of a plane. Soon, other criminals tried to copy him. They would hijack a plane, demand money and parachutes, and then jump out. It rarely ended well. Many were injured, and every single one was caught. Now and then, someone stepped forward claiming to be Cooper.
Donald Sylvester Murphy and William John Lewis were taken into federal custody on charges of extortion for impersonating Cooper and selling his tell-all story to a tabloid.
To this day, no one knows what happened after D.B. Cooper jumped from that plane. Up next is one of the strangest medical mysteries in history: the disease that paralyzed millions. In the early 1900s, people around the world began freezing in place. A strange illness was turning people into statues. The victims could hear and see everything around them, but they couldn't move a muscle. Doctors had never seen anything like it. The first wave of patients arrived at hospitals in 1917. At first, the illness didn't seem that bad. People just complained of headaches and extreme tiredness. Soon, the tiredness became overwhelming. Victims fell asleep wherever they were. Families tried shaking them awake, but nothing worked. Many remained in that deep sleep until they passed away. Some eventually woke up. They thought they were healed, but they weren't. The worst stage was about to begin. The majority of survivors faced the disease's final phase. They could no longer move, speak, blink, or react, but they remained fully aware.
While some had trouble understanding that time had passed, others revealed they were mostly aware of every passing day.
Families described it as watching someone turn into a living statue.
Fully aware of what was going on around them and just unable to get their bodies to talk to their brains.
Some remained frozen for months. Others stayed that way for years. Doctors didn't understand the cause or how it spread, but they knew it was spreading fast. Within months, the disease spread far beyond the first hospitals. Europe, the United States, Central America, and India all reported cases. In 1919, it was a global crisis. To make matters worse, another pandemic was spreading at the same time. Many doctors believed the two were connected.
Some thought that the fact that the epidemic occurred at the same time as the Spanish flu pandemic was too much of a coincidence.
More than 1 million people were infected with the statue disease. Half didn't survive, which is about a 50% fatality rate. Then one day, the problem solved itself.
It infected tons of people and then almost completely disappeared.
No cure or vaccine was created. The illness simply vanished. In 1930, there were barely any new cases, but those already infected stayed frozen for years. One patient who became sick at 11 years old stayed frozen for 70 years. Doctors have studied the illness for decades. Even today, no one knows what caused it or how it spread so fast. It remains one of the strangest medical mysteries of the 20th century. Every case on this list has one thing in common. Someone was there one moment and gone the next. No warning, no explanation, just an empty space where a person used to be. So my friends, say what you need to say while you still can. Visual Venture. Before you guys go, I have a video about disturbing mysteries solved by Reddit users. I talk about a man missing for 30 years with no memory of who he was, a grandmother who was hit by a driver that almost got away, and a man who people claim is from an alternate universe. Click here to watch it. Love you guys. Peace.